Hello you lovely lot and welcome to my channel. I'm Katie and today I'm really into ink at the moment, so I'm just going to go with this for a while. I hope I've still got this enthusiasm by October when it's Inktober, but you know what, it's here, I'm going to enjoy it and I hope you enjoy it too. This has been one of those drawings where it's sort of changed and evolved as I've gone along. I originally sketched this out with Finley in mind, and she was sort of going to be sitting on a tail by the beach and there'd be like the ocean lapping around her, but I ended up changing my mind about it. I really wanted to do more swirling hair and I figured that probably wouldn't look great on such a flat surface, so I thought, okay, we won't draw Finley, we'll actually have this figure that is not Finley emerging out of the sea, or maybe she's walking into it. I wanted to sort of demonstrate a direction that hair takes as well, with different physics I guess. And of course share that with all of you guys. I'm doing the initial outline with the Unipin liners, mainly because that's the one I've got to hand. And although I'm going to go over the whole area with black ink, I just wanted an easy pen to do this with. One of the things to note, especially if you're going to use a lot of black in the background, or the same colour we could say as well, so if you were drawing this in blue you were going to colour the rest of it in blue, it doesn't matter too much if your lines go a little bit out of kilter, especially if you're going to go over that area again when you're colouring it in. So if your hand decides it's not doing what you want it to when you're drawing, don't worry about it too much. You can always disguise any mistakes so nobody will know. To initially add the black detail, especially to the hair, because I actually just wanted to leave the paper showing through where the highlights would be, the pen I used was the Higgins Indian ink brush pen, the pump on. I think I got it in a sketch box a little while back. I thought this would be absolutely ideal for this, but when it came to doing large areas, it wasn't that great if I'm honest with you. I found that when the lines overlapped, it looked a horrible streaky mess, and when it came to those highlights, because it was so streaky, I thought, right, let's just go over the whole thing and then paint over it in some Indian ink out of a jar and using a brush. Now I'm much happier with how this was going, and again this is one of the first, or maybe it's the second stage of how this picture evolved. Sometimes it's very hard to explain, and it's not an artist block thing. I mean, I'm touching wood somewhere. Hopefully that has passed, and for me I try and find things to draw through or try and learn a new technique when the muses aren't on my side. And sometimes when you start a picture, when you think you've got through that block, if you feel that it needs to evolve into a different direction, then it's okay to allow that to happen, and it's all part of the creative process. Even artist block is. I know I've mentioned it a few times on videos, but I'm sure some of you guys who do arts and crafts, you can sympathise and understand how frustrating it is when you just can't seem to get any ideas, or you've got the ideas and you can't seem to execute them. I know a lot of artists have different ways of tackling this, and I guess I'm just sharing my experience with you and my thought processes behind it, because even if you don't take any of this advice on board, it's kind of good to know that it can be overcome or embraced, I guess. So for the background, I thought we can have a night sky with clouds, and I'd done my lovely bar shaped clouds, which I really like, and I had a horizon point where the body of water was going to be. Instead of going in there with the Higgins pen first, I decided let's just go straight in there with the Indian ink. And I know sometimes you need a couple of coats with the Indian ink, but I can apply thicker coats with this. I had a better level of control compared to that pen. And whilst I was doing this, I originally was going to leave highlights of where the waves would be and gain a sense of perspective that way, but by this point I thought I'm gonna end up having to use white on her hair, so why would I get more frustrated putting in all of these details which I know I can do better with a different medium. As much as I wanted to just keep this as black ink, sometimes you have to adapt what you're doing to get a better image overall, and that's okay, that's okay. And at this stage, whilst I was inking, those clouds were not doing it for me whatsoever. I don't know what it was, so I ended up covering them again in the ink, and I meant it this time. I got the wide brush on there and I thought, right, that is going to be erased, that doesn't need to be there, it's ruining things. And I think it was competing a little bit too much with the figure, because the skin tone is so fair on this character. That contrast, it didn't need any distractions, it was what it was. I decided to refine some of the outlines around the character, so where the black of the hair is up against the black of the background, I wanted to make sure that there was some definition there, so I went in there with a paint marker. This was the Pilot Pintor, but if you've got a fine nibbed Posca pen or any other similar brand, it should do just as good a job. You might need to add a couple of coats like I did, but that's okay. Now, you can't massively tell on screen, but the white ink is slightly whiter than the actual paper. I didn't choose an off-white paper, but different brands have different levels of whiteness, so bear that in mind. Like I say, you can't massively tell on screen, and if I decide to make a print of this, I'll be sure to make sure that's all corrected anyway, because I do just want this to be black and white and just concentrating on lines and form rather than colours. Now, I was getting to a favourite stage in the drawing, and that was adding the hair, and I know you guys are used to me adding the shadows in to create the textures of hair. Well, on this one here we have another technique, and that is to use highlights for the definition rather than the shadows, and I think this is just as effective. And you will find as well when you're doing a drawing yourself, or you already experienced this, that sometimes you have to work in the opposite way you would normally to get that hair detail down. Again, it's similar kind of pen strokes, just very loose lines, and using the natural circular movement my hand can make whilst drawing. All these little things add up to making nice hair textures. I really wanted this hair to have a good flow and direction to it, and for this to look convincing, I guess, it's good to note where the features of the body would be underneath this hair. And also, going back to talking about the physics of this, the character here is emerging from water. I'm going to say she's emerging. So you got to think the wet hair is going to be clinging to her limbs as well as trailing behind, and that needs to be taken into consideration as well. The strands of hair that are furthest away from the body I've drawn, and the lines are wider apart than they are actually where they are clinging to her body. And this is going to create a sense of depth as well as creating that movement as the hair is sort of sitting on the surface of the water. I feel like I am creating more tutorials on hair at the moment, and it just seems to be the thing I'm enjoying drawing at the moment. So if you're happy with me to keep doing this style of video, please let me know in the comments, and let me know if they are helping you, and if there are any topics you think I can help you with and create a video for. I'd really appreciate that feedback. Oh, and of course, shameless plug, if you haven't already, please subscribe, because it really helps this channel grow and it supports me as an artist as well. But anyway, let's get back to the drawing. So now it's time to add some of the details in on the water. I wanted it to look quite calm, but I also wanted there to be some sort of movement where she is. So maybe she hasn't quite emerged fully, or maybe she's standing there and the water around is quite calm. I did mention this was a drawing that kept evolving as I was going along. Now for the horizon, again it's a similar principle, but you're drawing all of those lines a little bit closer together and if possible a little finer, and as you're bringing those lines towards the foreground you widen them and thicken them a little bit and you get that sense of depth and movement. I've really been enjoying playing about with just using single colours at the moment as well as ink. And I've mentioned this before, but I do think it is a good exercise to practice through your art journey, even if you solely just use colours, or even if you do just use one tone. I mean, that's great. It's just nice to be able to push your techniques and your materials to see what else you could achieve by using form and line, and I suppose for the horizon and the water, using pattern as well. Now I know it sounds really dark and depressing, but I didn't want to put stars in the sky for this one. I actually really like the contrast of there being a plain sky and then all of this detail from the horizon line down. I think that just really creates something quite magical without having twinkly stars everywhere. But you know, I like doing stars, I have nothing against them, but I just didn't think they needed to be on here. And here we have it. I am really happy with how this turned out. I'm hoping this is the last artist block chat I have, but if you do want me to talk about that, please let me know. I've got lots of experience of artist block and overcoming it, of course. I do hope you found this video useful and you've enjoyed it as well. I know I really am waffling a lot just lately, but I like going through the thought processes on these. Huge thank you for watching. There should be some more videos and a playlist on screen right now. And I will see you lovely lot on the next video. Bye!